He promised to lower costs on day one. Costs aren't going down. It's going up. Inflation is on the way up. Life remains far too expensive for the American people.
I got to tell you,
Democrats want to do something about it.
Respectfully, I see the pivot. You know, you're good at this. That's how you got this job. But then I got to rephrase the question. You're not ready yet to say whether it's a good thing. You want to meet with him. You want to kick the tires. At this juncture, you're not ready to say that this turnout, this energy that he tapped in New York is good for the party yet.
Oh, no, listen. I mean, I think that when you can increase the electorate, particularly as it relates to parts of the electorate.
So the Democrat Party continues to absolutely fall apart at the seams and implode in on itself. And a rather disturbing trend you ought to be feeling if you are Democrat leadership at the current moment is the fact that the liberal voter base is only getting increasingly more angry, not less angry at you. This is, of course, despite the fact that in recent months they've been trying to make a lot of efforts between Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries to rehabilitate the Democrat Party's image. Let's not forget that Hakeem himself is right now coming off of his 8-hour and 44-minute grandstanding fake filibuster speech to delay the vote and passage of the big, beautiful bill. This is something that he really thought he could show to his voters. Look, I'm principled. I'm standing up. I'm willing to fight back against Trump, except newsflash here, he was grandstanding and Hakeem Jeffries we're dealing with, which means nobody, even really, I shall find out today, on the liberal side was all that impressed. Now, that in mind, I think this all should stand today as a reminder of why, as I so often say, Republicans have absolutely no excuse for losing either chamber in the 2026 midterms. That's not to say that it won't happen, because it absolutely can, especially considering Republican incompetence itself or the unforced errors that they tend to have a repeated trend of finding themselves in. But it is to say that when you look at the current state of the opposition, and the fact that they are utterly disorganized, they basically have no money because the donors do not want to donate in any way to this absolute dumpster fire. Their messaging is terrible. Their party leadership is, well, this picture speaks for itself, and they just continue to take the wrong side and be absolutely hysterical about the 20 side of every single 80-20 issue. This party is a joke, and this ought to be a reminder of why you do not want to lose to these absolute characters. But with that said, in today's video, I want to give you an update on some of the Democrat civil war that is imploding in on itself, because as you can see right here, Hakeem Jeffries on one hand is being ruthlessly mocked for this rather ridiculous and fake photo, much like everything they do, by the way, that he posted on social media. We apparently also have to talk here about a rather disturbing trend reported here by Axios that apparently Democrat voters are more insane, more mentally deranged than their own politicians, and we'll tell you all about what they said there. And of course, the fact that, again, it's getting so bad here for Democrat Party leadership that even MSNBC just now decided to call him out on his BS, as you have, of course, the internal war between the, Zohran Mamdani crowd, the sort of, as I so often say, I frame it like this, right? You basically have two losing outcomes for the party, because either the geriatric corrupt establishment retains power and they're not a winning side, or the younger woke, radical, crazy side takes power, and they're kind of off-putting to the national population. And so we'll get into all of this here today, because Hakeem Jeffries, ladies and gentlemen, is looking like right now, who knows if he even makes it into 2026 as the Democrat leader. At this point, it's not looking good for him. But first, though, folks, before we get into all of it, we do have a quick word today from our sponsors over at Black Forest Supplements, because if the Democrats are not enough to put you to sleep, maybe this will be it. You know, it's been covered up, the dark side of melatonin supplements. Since melatonin is a hormone, if we take too much of it, then our body stops producing it naturally. Additionally, studies have shown that kids who have chronically high melatonin don't go into puberty until a very late age. Why? Because melatonin suppresses puberty and messes with testosterone levels. To give you an idea, if you give melatonin to a male Siberian hamster, its testes go from the size of a marble to the size of a grain of rice within a week. But thankfully, there's hope. Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neuroscientist and tenured professor at Stanford University, recently revealed what he calls his favorite sleep cocktail.
My favorite sleep cocktail, based on really good, solid, peer-reviewed science, is magnesium threonate and something called apigenin, which is basically a derivative of chamomile. Those two things work really well. They essentially shut down the forebrain thinking, anticipating part of your brain, allow you to drift off into sleep really well.
Oh, I need that all day then, if you could shut that down.
Theanine is the third thing in the cocktail.
Isn't theanine, that is also a nootropic?
So theanine also turns on what's called the GABA system. It's like an inhibitory neurotransmitter, and it helps suppress anxiety and kind of turn off thinking. It helps you make the transition into sleep.
Let me write all this
Sure
stuff
thing.
down, because I think I do need this.
These are a game changer. I'll be amazed if it doesn't help.
Black Forest has created a supplement that contains all of these ingredients and more. They're calling it SleepX, and it takes advantage of the latest cutting-edge science to help you not only fall asleep, but stay asleep naturally. Forget about destroying your ability to fall asleep with melatonin or using Big Pharma's dangerous and addictive sleeping pills. I've been using this for a while now, and the racing mind is gone. The sleep schedule is fixed. And let's be real, we need to be strong, mentally sharp, and in peak condition. No one's going to take care of us but us, and that's why we need to have rejuvenating sleep where we can rest and charge up for a world that is constantly trying to break us down. So here's the deal. I've worked out an exclusive offer with my guy at Black Forest Supplements to hook you up with 45% off for the next 48 hours. But this stuff always sells out, so don't wait. Take advantage of this launch day deal since they said it is never going to be this cheap ever again at blackforestsupplements.com/Vince. Again, that is blackforestsupplements.com/Vince. Okay, and with all of that said, let's just start from the top here. First of all, amidst all of the Democrat attempts after the 2024 election to introspect and figure out why we lost, and apparently their grand, amazing conclusion here is to say that, oh, we need to seem more relatable to the American people. And of course, that is true on a level, but their idea of relatability is, oh, if we just go on more podcasts, then we'll seem relatable. If Pete Buttigieg, one of the most robotic people to ever live, just says BS and a bunch of cuss words, like he says the BS word, that'll really change everything. Perhaps the greatest summary right here comes out of the Instagram account of Representative Hakeem Jeffries, who apparently posted this ridiculous image right here, trying to basically communicate to the world, communicate to the American people that, like, hey, I'm hip. I mean, look at me. I got my sunglasses. I got my sweats on. I got my shoes, my Adidas shoes. Aren't I so cool? Aren't I just like you Americans? And isn't this just so real and authentic, by the way? But of course, as social media users pointed out, and you may have already been able to tell here from this image, if you zoom in around the bench, okay, you may notice something very strange, which is the bench around Hakeem Jeffries is like warped inward, right? What is going on there? I'm going to take a wild guess. I don't think this bench actually looks like that. So what happened here is very obvious. Hakeem Jeffries basically was trying to make his waist look smaller. He was trying to look thinner. And so in order to do that, he said, oh, look, there's FaceApp, or oh, look, there's some type of like Photoshop filter. Let me use like the morph spiral thing. But apparently, okay, did not notice the fact that we can see that it's Photoshop because of the bench. So, you know, obviously this has become something of a meme on social media, and rightfully so, because I think this just fully encapsulates the Democrat Party. Everything they do is fake. From Kamala Harris's campaign and the, you know, oh, she is so popular, $1.5 billion, to the constant grandstanding they do about literally everything, the fake hysteria, to even the fact that their photos they post on social media are fake, and they cannot even here bother, guys, to make it look a little bit real, right? I mean, I feel like, you know, a lot of people in public life sometimes Photoshop things, whatever, but that egregiously in this picture, where there's no even real purpose to it. Again, a perfect summary of everything the Democrat Party is. And apparently, guys, the story here goes on because it's not just about stupid social media posts. It's about the fact here, again, these people are imploding in on themselves, both from the politicians and from the voter base itself. So here, let's start with the politicians, because apparently, in reaction to the 8-hour, 44-minute grandstanding filibuster speech that we widely ridiculed among the passage of the big, beautiful bill, not only are conservatives mocking it, not only are regular Americans just like, is he going to, you know, we get the point. What is this for? Apparently, guys, though, continuing here again to lose the confidence of his own caucus, the Democrat House leader is currently facing, according to Axios, criticism from his own politicians because apparently they were mad at what he did. Take a listen here. So, yes, but the Democrat leader did face a bit of frustration from his caucus for leaving even his inner circle in the dark about his plans. Apparently, they said here, no one is upset that Hakeem wanted to do this, but to not tell members, be prepared, book multiple flights, be flexible. One House Democrat vented, grumbling, it is particularly hard to rebook flights on the 4th of July. Another House Democrat fumed that a heads up would have been nice. Essentially, you're saying, we wanted to go on vacation. Why did you do all of this, right? Quite hilarious. Quite hilarious. Anyways, so that's the politician side. Getting now into the unhinged comments coming from Democrat voters. And by the way, let me just make it clear for YouTube, okay? Obviously, we disavow this. This is a major news story. We're covering it for those relevant purposes, but we totally disavow political violence. Apparently, the Democrat voter base does not, okay? They're so unhinged. They're even apparently calling for it against their own side, which is really ridiculous and counterintuitive here, to say the least. But this is, again, an encapsulation of the ridiculous outrage that they are facing from their own voter base, who they themselves are insane, okay? The people calling for this. But it also, to a degree, is like, well, I guess when you have bred so many crazy, mentally deranged lunatics as the militant arm of your party for so many years, that this is the unfortunate end consequence, which is that, oh, they just go absolutely crazy, they're unhinged, etc. Nonetheless, apparently, here's the story out of Axios, where Democrats are being told, not by MAGA, not by January 6th insurrectionists, but by their own voters to, quote, get shot for the anti-Trump resistance. This story, to me, when I first heard it, sounded as crazy as you're probably thinking right now. But apparently, guys, at town halls in their districts and in one-on-one meetings with constituents and activists, Democrat members of Congress are facing a growing thrum of demands to break the rules and fight dirty and not be afraid to get hurt. So, of course, coming from the very side that said nobody is above the law for many years, these crazy Antifa lunatics and otherwise mentally deranged Democrat supporters are basically upset and demanding here that their own politicians engage in illegal acts of political violence. That's what we're dealing with here. Again, so Republicans, I once again repeat here, look to the 2026 midterms. There is no reason why you should not be able to effectively paint this party as a deranged bunch of psychos, because listen to them for themselves, right? Nonetheless, House Democrats have told Axios they see a growing anger among their base that has, in some cases, morphed into a disregard for American institutions, political traditions, and even the rule of law. Well, needless to say, I mean, your own voters have been rioting in the streets of American cities for multiple purposes for years now, okay? We obviously know what happened with LA and the ICE riots, but think back to Palestine. Think back to BLM in 2020, which you guys excused and defended. And now suddenly, when it's not so convenient to you because you're realizing, oh, people have really soured on this type of stuff. People are tired of these lunatics. They're not a good look for our party. Suddenly now you want to cry about it, right? I mean, that's just the truth. Again, I'm totally disavowing the calls for crazy stuff here, but still, just something to consider about the fact that this is the lunacy you've bred, and now this is the lunacy that exists, and they're shocked about it, right? Nonetheless, this idea that we're going to save every norm and we're not going to play Republicans' game, I don't think that's resonating with voters anymore, said one House Democrat. Another told Axios that, quote, a sense of fear and despair and anger among voters puts us in a different position where we cannot keep following the norms of decorum. Axios spoke to more than 24 House Democrats for this story, with many requesting anonymity to offer candid insights about their interactions with constituents and activists. Zooming out here, for many months, Democrat lawmakers have fumed that their base's demands to, quote, fight harder misunderstand the lack of legislative and investigative power afforded to the minority party in Congress, which is kind of a valid point, I guess, on their front. It's like, fight hard against Trump. Fight hard how? You don't even have the majority. Give grandstanding speeches. But then they give grandstanding speeches like Hakeem Jeffries, and they don't really advance anything. So yeah, I guess the answer here literally is indeed they want more Monica McIvers. They want people shoving with ICE, and that's apparently the only way you can adequately stand up to the Trump administration. Not exactly sure. I think it's also worth noting here, by the way, that, usually in an election, you have to basically make two appeals. You have to rally your voter base and consolidate them behind you. but you also have to make some appeal to independent voters in the center, and the perfect political coalition successfully unites both of those to win an election. But the Democrats are in a position here, right, where obviously in 2024, a big reason they got rejected is because they're too crazy. But if they go just, as you see them doing right now, by the way, more in the crazy direction, more in the Trump derangement syndrome direction, what is that going to do besides alienate even more normal Americans who see them as the party that is so obsessed with like these weird woke issues and taking the 20 side of every 80 issue? The boy who cried wolf effect, I would argue, is very real in American politics, and that's exactly what the Democrats are doing here, which is basically when you act hysterical, when you go Trump derangement syndrome, this is the end of the world, this is fascism, about like everything that he does. After a span of almost 10 years now, it gets tiring. Like people just stop listening. They don't really care. Okay. They just tune you out and they're still doubling down on it. Right. And they're doing that, by the way, because their own voter base is basically pushing them to total political destruction, right? Off the cliff, metaphorically speaking, because they're apparently asking the Democrats to become more crazy. After you saw in the election, the mandate is for them to become less crazy. Nonetheless, okay, here it goes on. We've got people who are desperately wanting us to do something. No matter what we say, they want more. Representative Brad Schneider of Illinois said here. Oh no, there you go, right? Liberal voters have angrily accosted Democrats at town halls for, in their view, not doing enough to counter President Trump's agenda. The question once again stands, what exactly do you want them to do? But I'm not a Democrat voter. They can speak for themselves. In response, some Democrats have tried to up the ante, heckling Trump, mounting rogue impeachment attempts, and getting tackled by law enforcement and even indicted in their efforts to scrutinize the president's deportation campaign, which I once again reiterate, may make the base happy. It doesn't make the center happy at all. Okay, a lot of Americans are like, really? You guys just look crazy. Okay, but anyways, what we're hearing is that the grassroots want more. Quote, some of them have suggested here that what we really need to do is be willing to get shot when visiting ICE facilities or federal agencies, a third House Democrat told Axios, which I don't know if that's true or he's kind of being hyperbolic, but it's obviously insane, okay? I don't think that has to be explained. Like, what is wrong with these people? But of course, that's the Democrat voter base for you. So what else is needed to be said, right? In 2025, there's the people who are naive, etc., but it's undeniable there is a mass epidemic, as you see at many of these protests, of like mental derangement, and I guess this is where it all ends up. Our own base is telling us that what we're doing is not good enough, that there needs to be blood to grab the attention of the press and the public, the lawmakers said. Just insanity, right? I don't know if they're trying to say, oh, create a martyr, like stage a Kent State-style event to get the public on our side, but they're just crazy, right? Anyways, a fourth House Democrat said constituents have told them civility isn't working and to prepare for, quote, violence to protect our democracy. Oh, January 6th, right? This is apparently what Democrat voters are telling their constituents. They want an armed revolution. These people are lunatics, absolute lunatics, right? But that is the party you're dealing with. Thank God they didn't win in November, by the way. Because they're saying that now, okay? How do you, whatever. A fifth House Democrat told people that people online have sent me crazy blank, told me to storm the White House and stuff like that. Thought they added, there's always people on the internet saying crazy stuff. Yeah, well, considering the trend of left-wing political violence that you see time and time again in the streets and the actual country itself, I'm not sure it's just an epidemic of people online, anonymous bots sending random stuff. No, it's a very real problem. And notice here, right? Instead of Democrats, does a single House Democrat in this article condemn it? Do they say, hey, this type of rhetoric from our voters needs to stop. We should not even be entertaining this insanity. Not only is it crazy, but it's also not pragmatic to winning elections. No. They're instead trying to do everything they can to figure out a way to appease these people. And that tells you everything you need to know, right? Anyways, a sixth House Democrat here went on to say that when they tried to persuade voters to channel their frustration into a focus on winning back Congress in 2026, quote, people who are angry don't accept that. They're angry beyond things. Well, I mean, as I said, mentally deranged, but that is your voter base indeed. So that's one hand of the Democrat implosion, but we still got more to talk about here in this video. Because now we got to get to the moment that I'm sure some of you came here for, which is where, okay, Now with the ongoing conflict, obviously, between the, as I said, geriatric establishment and young woke radical crazies, this very question came up with Hakeem Jeffries on the recent phenomenon of the socialist candidate in New York City, obviously, the infamous one and only Zohran Mamdani. And noticeably, Democrat leadership is in a little bit of a pickle here. Because on one hand, they don't really want to get too much behind this guy because they understand that the radicals turn off independent voters, and probably not a great look for the party, and perhaps to an extent even a threat to their own institutional leadership. However, on the other hand, they understand, for instance, Hakeem knows that Zohran, among Democrat voters, and probably just in general, honestly, because Hakeem has one of the worst approval ratings in this country, is significantly more popular than he is. And so take a listen here as MSNBC today tried to grill him on this, like, okay, introspection, what does the Democrat Party do going forward? He tries to pivot to just get to these generic talking points that apparently he thinks that by repeating political talking points like a robot, that'll somehow win back party for the Democrats. And nonetheless, right, MSNBC once here shockingly actually calls him out on his BS, and it's pretty interesting to watch. Check it out.
Zohran Mamdani came out of nowhere with less money, less fame, beat the Democratic establishment, beat Mario Cuomo. I should say Andrew Cuomo, son of Mario Cuomo, known in New York. Is that a good thing for the Democratic Party?
Well, he ran a tremendous race. He outworked the opposition. He out-communicated the opposition. He out-organized the opposition. And I think one of the things that was key about what he was able to do is that he ran directly at the issue of affordability. Across every age demographic, it's the number one issue in the city of New York. Now, he articulated a very provocative platform in that regard. I look forward to sitting down and talking to him about his plans to actually implement that platform to deal with some of the challenges that the communities that I face are dealing with in terms of gentrification and displacement, and a whole host of other issues that I would normally talk about with any Democratic nominee, and certainly we'll talk about with our particular Democratic nominee in the context of the mayoral race. I think one of the things that we'll continue to try to do at the national level is to lean in aggressively to Donald Trump's failure to address the high cost of living. He promised to lower costs on day one. Costs aren't going down. It's going up. Inflation is on the way up. Life remains far too expensive for the American people.
I got to tell you,
Democrats want to do something about it.
Respectfully, I see the pivot. You're good at this. That's how you got this job. But then I got to rephrase the question. You're not ready yet to say whether it's a good thing. You want to meet with him. You want to kick the tires. At this juncture, you're not ready to say that this turnout, this energy that he tapped in New York is good for the party yet.
Oh, no, listen. I mean, I think that when you can increase the electorate, particularly as it relates to parts of the electorate that came out in significant numbers, which...
The pivot, the art of the pivot, even MSNBC can see it there. And here's the thing I'm not sure Democrat Party leadership understands. You can do the grandstanding speeches. You can post the thing on social media where, oh, look, I'm wearing regular person clothes, even though I don't know how to use Photoshop, right? But fundamentally, okay, what was almost arguably the core issue with Kamala's 2024 campaign, even more than the fact, perhaps, that she was Joe Biden's VP, is the fact that she and the Democrats, as usual, came off as fake, as insincere. The reason why there's so much, talk about independent media, for instance, is for that very purpose, right? The Democrats come off as like robotic TV scripted cable news party, all that stuff. Obviously, Kamala's campaign basically was one giant script. I'm not sure if Hakeem understands that by doing the pivot, by providing literally nothing besides constant, just political talking points, you're not seeming any more authentic here, okay? It's still kind of a challenge to honestly figure out what you actually stand for when you're just reading off the script the whole freaking time. But this is what he continues to do. And simultaneously, right, despite not being willing to answer the question here, very often when he pivots, he's further digging himself into a greater hole, because it was just recently here that Hakeem Jeffries went on The View and was asked a very similar question, right? So MSNBC asked him, what do you think of Zohran Mamdani? Basically, what do you think of the radicalism within your party? He doesn't really answer. Well, similarly here, Hakeem Jeffries on The View was asked if he would embrace calls from his own party to defund ICE, right, to go in another radical direction. And notice here how he doesn't rule it out. So that's kind of enough of a soundbite in itself. But then further, provides a little bit of a political talking point and simply does, guess what he's good at? Guess what he does once again here? He pivots again. Check it out.
Now, some Democrats, amid the criticisms of ICE right now due to these ICE raids, have started calling for defunding ICE. Do you think that's effective going into the midterms, and do you support those calls?
Well, I definitely think that, we need aggressive oversight as it relates to the overly aggressive behavior that we've seen, from ICE, from the Department of Homeland Security. It's not what the American people actually, in my view, voted for.
Yeah.
Donald Trump and Republicans promised to go after violent felons, but instead they're going after law-abiding immigrant families. And in fact, in some cases, deporting American citizens and children, some with cancer. America is better than this. And that's the reality. In terms of what House Democrats stand for, we believe that in this country, you work hard and you play by the rules, you should be able to experience the American dream. You should be able to afford to live the good life.
Yeah, so first of all, we voted for mass deportations, to be clear. That's what the signs at the RNC even said. So let's not be coy about that. But furthermore, he didn't answer the question. The question is, would you defund ICE? Well, let me just read off my script for you. Okay. Well, again, as I say, see how that works out for you, Hakeem. Do you think that, reading the script is going to save either your post in Democrat leadership or your party as a whole? Do you think that after watching 2024, we'll just start a podcast where we have this microphone in front of us, but we act the same way? You think that's really going to make a fundamental difference? Or why don't you try cussing more, right? If, the big BS bill, I said cuss words. These people suck. That's why I said again, Republicans, no excuse for losing. But with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.